Welcome back to another CommCon Virtual 2020 session. This time we're with Geoff from Cyara. Cyara are one of our platinum sponsors, so thank you very much for sponsoring. Without our platinum sponsors especially, this conference would never have happened, and the content that you're viewing free of charge would never have made it onto YouTube. So thank you very much for believing in us, believing in the conference and wanting to push it forward. So Geoff is the Chief Innovation Officer at Cyara, but who are Cyara and what do they do? It's a question that I asked myself when they came to me and wanted to do some work with me. And I was like, who's this Australian for wanting to do some crazy stuff? We'll talk about that later, but I'm going to pass it over to Geoff so that he can tell us about Cyara and what they do.
So I guess if you take it from the catch cry of being the world's leading customer experience assurance platform for the enterprise, that's what the marketing people say. I think maybe the best way to explain things is I guess, our background and where a lot of those of us who founded the company came from. We all sort of came from a contact center technology background, sort of working for different companies back in the sort of mid to late 1990s, where computer telephony integration became a big thing, and we were starting to get into voice over IP, the acquisition by Cisco of Celsius started to really make VoIP a mainstream thing at the time. So I worked for Hewlett-Packard. I moved to a company called Genesis, which was a big player in that sort of computer telephony space at the time. And this was all legacy stuff, PABXs, IVRs, predictive dialers, things like that. But it was becoming a much more mainstream technology, and Genesis was a very successful company at the time, and it continues to be today. I guess what was that sudden moment, that gotcha moment for us. And it was while we were working on a project for a large government agency, which was a big voice over IP project. And effectively, it was one of the first in Australia to do this. It was for the tax office. Tax time came around. This VoIP infrastructure that we'd rolled out and put into place, it was a catastrophic failure. Day one, the tax date rolled around and the system just would not stay up at all. It had massive problems. And it was because at the time, really, there were very few solutions out there to actually provide any level of assurance of contact center platforms. So that was sort of what got us thinking, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something that we can do. There were some vendors in the space, but they were typically difficult to deal with. And so we got a lot of ideas around how we wanted to build Cyara. And there are a few main things that I think define us as a company. The platform had to be easy to use. It wasn't going to be a heavily technically oriented platform. We had to be able to have people who could use it without, programming degrees. We wanted to have a single platform. Now, there's just a little slide. I'm not going to go into the details of the slide here that you'll see, but effectively our product is broken down into three main areas. Regression or functional testing, which we call our Velocity. Production monitoring, which we call Pulse, and load, which we call our Cruncher. So the ability to generate large amounts of customer load. The platform also had to be end-to-end. So it had to be able to exercise both the customer side and the agent side for a call center. And one of the key points for us was we had to talk about automated synthetic agents and customers, not simulated. So there had to be actual real interactions in exactly the same way that a customer would interact or an agent would interact on their calls. So it was all about true experience. It wasn't about trying to simulate or mock things. It had to be a true experience. And we were very successful in that space. We've got a large number of customers globally, and if I just give another slide here, and this is just a cross section across all of the different sort of verticals that we work in, and you can see we've got some of the largest companies in the world across all of these verticals that use us day to day to assure their customer experience, to assure that their contact center platforms work well. There's a whole pile of other stuff that was in that slide about things that we do that I'm not going to go into, that aren't really relevant to what we're doing or what we're talking about here at CommCon. But there's stuff around us being able to do customer experience design. We have a platform that can reverse engineer legacy IVRs, sort of a bit like a web spider, but for a voice IVR platform. So we can actually reach into an IVR and reverse engineer it from the outside. We've also moved on from just a pure voice focus into an omni-channel focus now. So our platform looks at email, SMS, web chat interaction. So anything that any way that a customer may interact with one of these enterprises, we handle that from a synthetic customer and agent perspective. Other things like being able to have our global presence now, because we were originally a company started in Australia, but we're now a pretty large global entity based out of the US these days, but with global call dialing capabilities for in-country dialing around the globe. So very important for a lot of our enterprise customers that have presences in these different areas. And look, I could go on for ages about Cyara and all that, but hopefully that gives you a feel for what we're about. We're about ensuring that the customers of all of these big enterprises that we're dealing with are being serviced and happy in the way that they're being serviced.
Cool. So, I mean, I guess the question there is, why did you become interested in being involved with CommCon, other than me kind of meeting you however many months ago it was and going, oh, we had this really cool event like 6 months ago, whatever it was. You should have been there. Other than me going, Segway riding is really great fun. Why did you want to be involved? What are you trying to get out of CommCon?
Yeah. Well, I guess first and foremost, you asked so nicely. So, you know, we couldn't have gone much past that. I suppose the other part was, certainly I want to make sure that when you have your next one and you go to these really fancy manors in the English countryside, that I get a gig for that as well. So that's also a part of it. But in all honesty, I guess if you were sort of listening from your the people attending the conference to what I was just talking about, probably everyone's going, well, what's that got to do with us? What's that got to do with WebRTC? A little bit of VoIP and stuff like that. But, how really relevant is this stuff? And for us, it's massively relevant because we do have a very large customer base, as you saw, of large companies around the globe. But we're sort of at an inflection point at the moment that we're seeing within call center technology. A lot of companies are looking at cloud technologies, not those traditional Avaya, Cisco, Genesys, premise type platforms anymore. But cloud is actually becoming, a part of what they may look to do. And there's a whole pile of reasons for that. I mean, cloud contact centers are providing them a lot more agility in how they deliver their contact center services. Generally, they're considerably lower in cost. They've got simplified ongoing maintenance. There's a whole pile of different reasons around cost and effort and stuff like that. More recently, I guess, in the last few months, the COVID crisis has identified to a lot of traditional bricks and mortar type call centers they couldn't have people turning up to call centres anymore physically. The recent shutdown that we've actually seen here in Australia. So we were doing very well for quite some time, and one of the states, Victoria, down in Melbourne, have had a huge, well, not a huge, but an outbreak again, and the city's now shut down for another 6 weeks. People can't go to work. You can't go into your places of work. You've got to stay at home. So, there's a lot of stuff going on there that means your traditional bricks and mortar call centres aren't going to work. And if you've got one of those traditional solutions based around SIP, H323, Skinny, whatever it may be, it's hard to be able to take those agents and extend that sort of technology to their physical home. It just doesn't work. So I guess for us, the big driver is around cloud contact center technologies, and there's a lot of guys out there. You and I, we've been working on stuff around Amazon, Twilio, but Genesis have their platforms, multiple cloud platforms, Nice, CX1, there's a whole pile of them. But across all of them, one of the common technologies is WebRTC. Obviously, one of the key requirements for a cloud platform is the ability to provide very light touch requirements. You don't want to have to install software on agents' home PCs and stuff like that. You need to have ways to get that stuff out, and obviously WebRTC is the perfect technology for that. And we're seeing a lot of this across some of the very big customers. I worked with National Australia Bank, which is one of the biggest banks in Australia. One of the first customers I worked with at Genesis, they were with Genesis for almost 20 years, and they've just recently moved to Amazon Connect. So a lot of that traditional, the big guys won't move, it's not necessarily the case anymore. And WebRTC is critical to that technology. So,
and therefore you need to be able to test that and assure quality and test things in a slightly different way than you would have done in the more typical SIP way. But you still need to be able to go to your customer, right? This cloud contact center, when we have everyone in a building, that building can withstand all of that traffic because it's a different type of traffic now. And then you also need to be able to go, we've got a load of users from home, right? We need to make sure that those home connections are stable and they've got enough of a small enough latency and everything else that we require within WebRTC/RTC in general. You're the people that are enabling that to happen.
Exactly. So where traditionally we would interface with the low-level protocols of SIP and H323 and Skinny, the way that WebRTC, as we all know, works is very different. That sort of divergence of signaling and media is critical, and the way that that's driven and the technologies we use are very different. And when we started in this space, probably about a year and a half or so ago, we built some solutions that allowed us to do agent automation for these cloud vendors, the Twilios, the Amazons, the Genesises. But when it came to the WebRTC side of things, so that was automating the agents from an agent application perspective, an API screen pop type perspective. But the way that we approached that was the way that a lot of people have, the basics around using mock audio devices with headless browsers, and that was sort of how we started, and that gave us quite a deal of functional capability for our customers. But we've had to progress on from that, and we've had a number of other technologies that you sort of know about, where we've done synthetic audio endpoints. So an example is this little black box here, which is quite a strange looking device from a WebRTC perspective, but it actually provides our ability to do end-to-end voice quality testing in the old days with a physical handset, like a physical turret, you can see here. But in WebRTC world, one of the first things we did was hook that into the headset port of the PC and do the testing that way. Then we went beyond that into effectively interfacing with the WebRTC APIs internally by injecting code inside of the applications and actually redirecting the media from within the application itself. But one of the key problems we've had with this is, as I said, one of our mantras is one platform. So we want to have one platform across all of those functional monitoring and load testing, so that customers don't have to learn multiple platforms, multiple testing cases and stuff like that. So the thing had to scale. And obviously when something is very much centralized around the browser, then it becomes a real problem. We all know exactly what that is the browser itself, the WebRTC native code, the media handling code, is not designed to handle hundreds of concurrent sessions, and it just doesn't sort of handle that situation. I mean, if you look at an example of one of our big global customers, a tech giant, the tests we do for them, we just recently completed one for them, and it was 24,000 concurrent calls into their IVR front end and 10,000 concurrent synthetic agents at the back end, all doing voice quality streaming end to end. You can't do that with sort of the approaches we've taken so far.
You couldn't bring up 10,000. You couldn't bring up 10,000 browsers or even 10,000 tabs and be able to test that in exactly the same way. So that's some of the work that we've been doing, right? Exactly.
And one of the approaches sometimes is, let's just throw some AWS hardware at it and scale it up that way. But a lot of our customers with their bricks and mortar approach want to do that testing within their bricks and mortar infrastructure. So you can't just bring, a massive EC2 instance in. So you've got to have a level of scalability that will work for the premise as well as the cloud. And as you pointed to there's some really cool stuff that we've been working on. Unfortunately, we weren't at the point to present it in a proper session this time around. But when you move to the English manner for next year, I'll be very keen to present with you, because obviously we've worked on this collaboratively together, and I think it's a really cool thing that we've done by moving the media outside of the browser, leaving the application inside of the browser, but handling that media through our own media server, which scales much better, provides bidirectional voice quality, using full reference algorithms, the P863 Polka algorithm. So there's lots of cool stuff that we're working on there.
So that leads us on to my final question. What does the future hold for Cyara? I've got this glimpse into Cyara at the moment with what we're working on. I really wish we could share more about it. If anyone's interested, then go have a conversation with Geoff. But what's next? How is this change of technology potentially changing your direction? What's COVID-19 done for your direction?
Indeed, and a lot of it is about assurance, about these big companies doing a massive shift in technology from what they knew in the traditional VoIP world into cloud technology, into WebRTC in terms of home agents and stuff like that. And really the active testing that we're talking about at the moment is step one for us. It's really providing feature parity with what we have today with traditional voice over IP, but actually bringing that to the WebRTC technologies and the cloud platforms that we've been talking about. But actually one of the areas that's of great interest to us is moving beyond that active testing into passive monitoring and testing parallel with real agents. So what we've been talking about so far has been our synthetic agents, synthetic greenfield load testing, synthetic monitoring to a synthetic agent to make sure that things are working there. But extending it into doing similar sort of things, but plugging into real agents. So doing monitoring of WebRTC statistics globally for our customers, a little bit like what I guess a company like CallStats.io has done traditionally, capturing those statistics, putting them up into our data lake where a lot of this data is stored, and providing analytics and providing monitoring and alerting around sort of those lower level network information, but combining that also with our ability to do active testing and active monitoring. If you picture an idea where, say, we've got an at-home agent that we may have identified a trend of problems for that agent, just looking at it from a pure networking perspective, maybe some increases in round trip time, which is a common problem that indicates sometimes catastrophic cloud platform failure. That's often an early precursor to cloud platform failure. Combining that with the ability to feedback information to us, because we've got the integration with the application layer of these cloud platforms. We're a part of their agent cockpit. So allowing the agent to be able to feedback their own view of what's going on. So, hey, I had a bit of a problem on that last call. Combine that with the correlated network statistics. But then the next step for us is then combining that with our active testing capability. We have the ability to control agent state through these integrations. So if you picture an idea where we're seeing a trend of problems, the agent has indicated, hey, I think there is a real problem here. The last couple of calls I've had have been really bad. We can take that agent through our integrations into the contact center platforms out of routing so they don't get a new call, but then combine that with the ability to have an active test where the agent will click a button on their agent application, their cockpit, which actually triggers our integration to that platform to initiate a call through the platform to our own endpoint, effectively our presence in the PSTN or in the cloud, and actually do live testing utilizing full reference algorithms end to end without actually having to trouble the agent. So, that sort of progression of blending both our active testing, which has been our bread and butter, with passive monitoring on a much larger scale, so that it's not just about testing, specific points or specific parts of the platform, but looking at the performance of WebRTC across the whole platform. And that's I guess our technical direction. Why are we involved in CommCon? We've learned so much from the community. It's a wonderful community, the WebRTC community. I've spent so much time with you. I've had great chats with Dr. Alex. It's a very open community, and so I think we want to give back some of that, but also, as we start to do all of this work, we're increasing our product footprint greatly. And so what we want to do is I guess, put a bit of a word out there so that people know what we're doing, that we're doing some cool and interesting stuff, which I think you can attest to, that maybe there's some opportunities for some of the people out there to maybe do some work with us in the future, which would be really cool.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about who Cyara are and what you do. I think you're a great company. You've got great kind of ethics around how you operate, and you're just a great company for me personally to work with. So thank you very much for sponsoring. And everyone should go and have a look at what Cyara do. Take a look at the website. The link will be in the description below. And I just want to say thank you again to Geoff, and we'll see you all on the next session. Cheers.
Thank you, mate, and have a great time, everyone. I hope you enjoy it. Ciao.
Don't go anywhere quite yet, though. We've got to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Without them, none of this would have even happened in the first place. So for our platinum sponsors, we've got Toulouse, Voxbone, and Cyara. For our gold sponsors, we've got the Matrix Foundation, Vonage, Sangoma, Telviva, and Loway. Our silver sponsors are Aptosay, Pion, Telco Bridges with ProSVC, Avoxy, 8x8 with Jitsi, and FirstCom Europe. Then we've also got community sponsors, QXIP and Cycol Systems. Without any of them, this would never have even happened. You wouldn't have had all of this free content on YouTube. So go say thank you to all of them. Go look at what they provide, what services they offer, and have a conversation with them all over on Riot, riot.commcon.xyz. The link will be in the description below, along with links to all of our sponsors. You can go and watch preview videos from all of our gold sponsors right now over on YouTube. The links will be somewhere over here. All I've got to say is thank you to all of our sponsors, and I'll see you over on the Q&A shortly. Cheers.